Hello, and thank you for being part of this meeting. I would like to share with you some interesting information pertaining to where we exist. So, starting with two topics, cycles of the material belt and dimensions of the creation. I hope you find it informative because it was informative for me researching this. Let's get this slide going. So, for those of you who haven't heard about the wake and sleep cycles of the creation, I suggest that you take a look at a video that I've got on YouTube, Odyssey, and BitChute. It's entitled The Evolution of the Creation. If you're already familiar, this will be a bit of a review. So, we're in the first wake cycle of the most basic, simplest form of creation, of which there are 10 to the power 49 different forms of creation, each one of them more refined and more advanced than the previous. So, being the most basic form of creation, it is also in its very first wake cycle. There are 7 wake cycles and 7 sleep cycles. So it's awake for one cycle, then it sleeps for, and awake, asleep, and each time getting 7 times larger in terms of time. Let me get into this now. So in the first wake cycle of our most basic creation form, since the Big Bang, the creation has been expanding for 46 trillion years. It will continue to do so for a duration of 155.52 trillion years, after which point it will contract for that same amount of time. And then it will go into a sleep cycle, which is just as long as the expansion and contraction. And then it will reawake, this time 7 times longer duration for the wake cycle and sleep cycle subsequently. And it keeps on going in that pattern. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was during this first wake cycle, the creation is capable of creating a material universe or material universes. And only in this first wake cycle of the most basic form of creation. I also wanted to bring your attention to the universe belt of the creation. Again, if you're not familiar with the belts of creation, I suggest that you look at a video that's also on YouTube, Odyssey, and BitChute. It's called The 7 Belts of Creation, and that will give you more detailed information. Really, all I wanted to point out was that it's the 4th belt of our creation, which actually is where the material universe exists. Only within the first wake cycle, as I said before, of the creation are there numerous physical universes. Each material universe has a renewal cycle of 49 billion years. So this is interesting. But actually it's 46, and then there's 3 billion years where there are actually no life forms in the material universe. It's a renewal cycle, and we have completed approximately 1,000 cycles. So, to be more precise, the universe creation has been expanding for 46 trillion years, and within that 46 trillion years, each material renewal cycle is 49 billion years. So you divide that amount and you actually precisely have 939 cycles. Renewal cycles. And well, finally, we are approximately 17 billion years into our current renewal cycle. So there's roughly 32 billion years remaining. In the booklet, it explains this process. Before the 17 billion years in the previous cycle, the process is described. All life forms reach their highest stage of development, and their spirit forms go on into higher spirit levels. Thereby, the material belt is then free and untouched from all material life forms. After which, then already after the complete renewal of the material belt, new life forms of all kinds and species establish themselves on the planets and in their waters, etc., within a few 3 to 4 years, which in the course of time, again, evolve themselves into higher life forms and go the normal way of development. This and everything contained in the creation is also classified in every respect to the order of the activity and the resting phase, which is also connected with a constant change of the passing away and becoming again, just as it exists and can be perceived on planet Earth in the open nature. And in Contact Report 238, Billy states, "You said that the oldest solid coarse matter known to you indicates an age of 37,100,000,000 years. So this means that this matter would have already existed for approximately 20 billion years in the previous cycle. And hence that explains why life can start up again after 3 or 4 years, because the planets and suns and still continue even though there's no life forms. So that is that. Now, of course, stars and planets will die eventually, just like everything else, will transform into new forms. But there is that crossover from one renewal cycle to the next. But wait, there's more. The 7 dimensions of the creation. Now, there is a problem here with the term dimension, because sometimes it's referred to dimension as a dimension, sometimes it's referred to as a space-time configuration, other times it's referred to as universe, so it can get really confusing. And it was for me trying to figure this out. However, for the simplicity's sake, we'll stick with the term dimension for now. In Contact Report 709, Billy states, "The creation itself has 7 dimensions with 7 energy belts each, of which only one belt, the 4th, exists in each dimension as a matter belt, which is called the universe by the Earthlings, whereby the Earthlings must first be laboriously made to understand that the universe they call the material belt is only one of 7 parts of one dimension of the 7 dimensions of creation. In this matter belt, precisely in this universe called by Earthlings, past, present, and future alone exist." In Contact Report 707, Billy states, "Absolutely simultaneously with the coming into being or becoming of the creation of the universal consciousness, 7 different dimensions or space-time structures arose in it. Consequently, all space-time configurations or dimensions are in exactly the same space as all the others, but separated from each other as a different dimension. All dimensions are also provided with a material belt in which galaxies, nebulae, celestial bodies and planets, etc., are arranged differently in each space-time configuration. There is the possibility for intelligent life forms to develop techniques through their high evolution and intelligence to penetrate the dimensions or space-time configurations in a technical way, or to change from their dimension into another dimension and thus travel back and forth between them. In Contact Report 707, Billy states, and this is what this picture in front of you is trying to depict. As an example, the creation can be thought of as an inflatable balloon in which there are 7 other inflated balloons of exactly the same size, whereby these 7 inner balloons can be understood as 7 dimensions. The outermost balloon envelope, which represents the creation or the creation universal consciousness, in a similar way, continues to be inflated and consequently expands further and further, as happens in the same way in its interior with the 7 further balloons. Consequently, these always inevitably remain the same size as the outer balloon envelope. These 7 inner balloons, which can be understood as 7 dimensions, thus expand equally with the outer envelope and correspond to the same outer conditions of the outer balloon envelope, which has 7 rings, which can be understood as 7 planes, whereby the 4th ring is covered with dust and can be thought of as a material belt. So in each of the 7 dimensions or 7 universes of the creation, there is a material universe in the 4th belt. The Pleiadian come from the Ankar universe, and we are situated in the therein universe. But more details on that in a moment. In each dimension, the material belt has different space-time configurations. So in each one of those 7 creational dimensions, there are unlimited different space-time configurations in the material belt, and only in the material belt. The Ankar universe, this is where the Pleiadians come from. They're actually located in one of the space-time configurations in the Sirius dimension or Sirius dimension. In Contact Report 724, Billy states, "It is also to be explained that you Pleiadian in your Ankar universe in the Sirius dimension remain absolutely safe from the strangers on Earth if you keep to your directives, which prescribe that you do not make any contact with foreign peoples and inhabitants of other planets, etc. And it is also worth mentioning that if the aliens who are functioning on Earth should be able to penetrate other universes of our creation, they would first have to find out which of the 6 other universes outside of ours it is that you Pleiadian exist in. And if they were to find that out, then the even bigger problem would be to find that dimension or space-time configuration in the Sirius dimension." So there's another thing to contemplate about our universe. The therein universe, this is where we exist, but actually more specifically in one of the space-time configurations within the Goran dimension. In Contact Report 207, Quetzal states, we do we denote your dimension with the term Goran, while we call ours Cyrus. The 7 dimensions of the creation and their multiple space-time configurations. In Contact Report 709, Billy states, "It just never ends with my explanations that I have to give that you Pleiadian come from your space-time structure Ankar universe, as you call your dimension, and that you only come to our Dern universe, and you are active only there in the Sol system, respectively, also only on the Earth, but nowhere else in the entire Dern universe. Again and again, I must also explain then that when it is said that your peoples are also to be found in the Lyra system, the Pleiadian system, or beyond the galaxy, sun, or the Milky Way, etc., that does not mean the stars and constellations in our Dern universe, but those in your Ankar universe or Ankar space-time configuration." In Contact Report 707, Billy states, "The Pleiadian exists in their Ankar space-time configuration at a distance of about 500 light years from Earth, whereby the Pleiadian in their Ankar dimension, seen from the Dern material belt, respectively seen from the Dern universe, come from a distance of about 115 light years further beyond the Pleiades stars known and visible on Earth from the Ankar space-time configuration. The distance from Earth to the Pleiades seen in the Dern universe is around, on average, about 400 light years." Finally, in each of the material belts, there are uncountable past, present, and future space-time configurations that exist that enable time travel. Again, in Contact 709, Billy states, "In the matter belt alone, past, present, and future dimensions or space-time configurations are given in multiple forms and in endless numbers, while in the 7 dimensions of the creation as such, as they are each arranged in the egg-shaped creation as a separate unit, there is only one single dimension or one single space-time configuration. These are therefore the 7 creational dimensions which prevail in the egg-shaped creation itself, and which in turn have 7 energy belts within them, whereby one of each of the 7 energy belts has a material belt in which uncountable dimensions or space-time configurations of the past, present, and future exist." In Contact Report 707, Billy states, "In addition to this possibility, the dimensions of the past and the future are also given, into which it is possible to travel or change from the present, which lasts 2.7 seconds, into the past or future, just as it is also possible to change from the future into the past and from the past into the future. It is also worth mentioning that it is absolutely impossible to change something for the better or worse, or negative or positive in a dimension of the past when something has already happened up to the time of the present from which the change is made into the past." Okay. Changes can only be made in the current time of 2.7 seconds of the present, which then as causes determine the course of events up to the resulting effect, and thus follow the law of causality and fulfill it infallibly. And just as a final note of contemplation, not only is it possible for people, for extraterrestrials, and for us in the future, much distant future, to travel not only through the different dimensions and space-time continuums within this particular creation, but it will be also possible to travel from one simple creation form into another simple creation form. Because as I explained at the beginning, this creation form, which is the most basic form of creation with a material belt in its first wake cycle, this level of creation is populated by endless amount of creations that are also on this particular level. But there are 10 to the power 49 different levels of creation. Something to consider. Thank you very much. Till the next time.